Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Liz. Thank you so much for joining me today on this Saturday. Yeah, everybody say where you're from and where you're joining from in the chat. I love to see that. I see Linda from Kansas and Sonali from Texas. Hi, guys. There's Maxine from Kansas and Celia. Hi, Celia. Kathy from Brooklyn. Hi, Susan. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. This is going to be a fun class. I'm going to do some very, very basic stuff. So if you've never done corner to corner, this is going to be a good starting point for you just to learn how to get going. Once you get going, you can kind of do a lot of different things with it. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And if you guys have any questions while we are going through, just throw those in the chat. I'm going to keep reading the chat as we go along. And if I miss anything, Nicoria will help me out. Hi, Kimberly from Tampa, and there's Robert from Miami, and I have Glory Lee from North Carolina. Hi, Belle. Hi, Kiana from Washington. I'm so glad you guys are here today. All right, let's switch over to my hands, and I'm going to show you what materials we are going to use, but keep putting in those chats where you guys are coming from. Hold on, let me click this later. Being recorded. Okay. Here we are. I hope everybody can see me and hear me okay. Like I said, any questions, throw those in the chat. I'll be happy to answer as we go along. If you need me to slow down or redo something, I'm happy to do that too, okay? So I have this Loops and Threads yarn. This one is called Charisma. This is a favorite of mine. It's a pretty kind of thick weight. Like it's thick, but it's actually lightweight, right? If that makes sense. It's really soft and lightweight. So it's good for a lot of projects, especially blankets. Because it's thick, you can whip up a blanket really, really quick. That's why I chose this one to show you how to do corner to corner. So you can see this is what it looks like. And this didn't take me any time at all. I've got, only a few blocks in this little square. So this is a good, easy, quick yarn to use, and it's nice and like smooth, so you don't have a lot of texture to it. If you're just starting out in crochet, don't use something that has a lot of texture like fuzzies all around it, because it can be more difficult to see your stitches. With this one, you can see the stitches easily. Okay, I'm using a 6.5mm hook, but you can use whatever hook you want. This one says 8mm, so that'll be fine too. If you have a 7, that'll be fine too. Probably 6.5 or above is what you would need though. But like I said, this is just for practice, so it's not a pattern. We don't need to worry about the gauge for this. Okay. Susie from Pennsylvania, Rosemary from Wisconsin. Hello, hello. Okay, so let's just get right on into it, you guys. I'm just going to show you kind of the basics of this. There's no pattern or anything like that. So I'm just going to start out. Let me tell you about this a little bit first, in case you've never done corner to corner. So it starts here at one block in the lower right corner, right? So we make one block. And then the next row is going to be diagonally across this way with 2 blocks. So here's a block and here's a block. If you can kind of see them, maybe if I show you the 2 different colors, it'll be easier to see. So here's a block, and I'll show you how to make the blocks, of course. And then here's 2 blocks. And then the next row has 3 blocks, and it goes diagonally down this way. So all these rows are worked diagonally. And then the next row has 4 blocks. So here you can see it pretty clearly. 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks. And then the next row has 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're turning. So we're kind of going this way diagonally in rows. And as you notice, with each row, I added a block. So row 1 has 1 block, row 2 has 2 blocks, and so on like that. Once you get to a certain height and width that you want, that's when you start decreasing blocks. Okay, so the center will be like the most blocks that we have. So let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right here, you can tell that's where I started decreasing to come back up to this corner. So here I have 5 blocks, and then I decrease to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I decrease to 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 1. And then you end up in the upper left-hand corner. So you always start in the lower right corner, and you always end in the upper left corner, and you're working diagonally across this way. And that's for all crochet corner to corner. That's the kind of the basic of how it works. Okay. And Danielle says it reminds me of s'mores. It does. I didn't think about that when I made it, but it does. Especially if you're hungry, I guess. Okay, so that's kind of basically how it works. The cool thing about it is once you get familiar with it, you can start changing colors. And because this is a grid of blocks, people like to do sort of, projects with grid. So you make a design on a grid. You can make a, like here, for example, this is pretty advanced. But if I had a grid like this, and you can see it's really small because there's so many blocks. You can see there's all little blocks here. So all these blocks would be in yellow, and then we change colors for the blocks, and then we change colors, and then we have like a design where this is a tennis court with a tennis ball and a shadow. So if you made this huge blanket, it's all blocks. It starts here and it goes all the way up this way, and then you change colors throughout to make a picture, basically. So like a picture graph. So that's the cool thing that people like to do about with it. But you can do also all solid or simple stripes. Or if you have like a variegated yarn that's going to do self-striping, then you don't have to worry about changing colors, and it'll still look like diagonal stripes, which is really cool also. Okay, so that's like advanced stuff. So let's get started with crocheting our first block. And we're just going to do the basics here. I'm going to use the darker colors so you can see it on camera. Okay. Let me see if I can move this down slightly. Okay, so we're always going to begin with a chain of 6. So I'm going to put a slip knot on my hook. And of course, that's how you always start with any crochet project, pretty much. And we're going to do a chain of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so now to make the first block, we start out with a chain of 6, and then we want to work a double crochet into the 4th chain from the hook. So we'll count our chains down. Here's 1, 2, 3, and here's the 4th chain right here. So I'm going to work a double crochet into that 4th chain, and this is all double crochets. It's usually always all double crochets. Sometimes I've seen it in half double crochet, but when you're doing corner to corner, you're usually going to use all double crochets. So yarn over, insert into the chain, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now that I have 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's a double crochet. So now if you can see, I have this first 3 skipped chains. That counts as your first double crochet right here. And then we made another double crochet. So that's 2. And then we're going to make 2 more in those 2 remaining chains that we have. 1, 2. So double crochet in the next chain. And then double crochet in the last chain. Okay, and now I have a little rectangle, and that is my first block. It's not beginning crochet. Somebody said I thought this was for beginner. So it's not beginning crochet. It's just if you've never done this particular style of crochet before, which is corner to corner. But you can stay and see, you'll see I'm going to kind of get repetitive here. So, and I'll redo it again. Okay. So just try to just maybe watch and see if you can kind of see what I'm doing. If you're just a beginner, like you've never crocheted before, you're going to probably want to practice holding your hook and your yarn. But you can see what I'm doing in making these stitches because I'm going to use the same stitch throughout. Okay. All right. So now to make the second block, this is our first block. The second block, we're going to do another chain of 6. And then we're going to connect these 2 blocks sort of. So this is row 1, just 1 block. just like we have here, one block. So I'm going to make 6 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So for 6, or I'm sorry, every row starts with a chain of 6. Okay, every row begins with a chain of 6. And then we're going to do the same thing we did. We're going to count down 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and into the 4th chain. So skip the first 3 and double crochet into the 4th chain. Double crochet, double crochet into the next one, and then in the very last one, double crochet. Oh, good. So Nolly said, I've never done corner to corner. It's interesting as a beginner too. Yeah. So if you're kind of a beginner and you've only worked in maybe rows back and forth, or maybe even rounds around and around, this is kind of a totally different thing than that. So it's working in a diagonal, which is, yeah. That's why I was kind of trying to cater to people who maybe were just crocheting and knew kind of the very basics, like how to do stitches, but wanted to do something new. Okay. All right, so there are this is where it gets a little, you have to just kind of remember what to do next. So this is the first row. And now I want to connect this row. So I want to turn this first row here so I can connect it, right? And it's kind of wonky the way you turn it, but you'll get used to it. So you just turn this because every row we're turning. And now this needs to connect like close like that, right? So here's that first turning chain that we did right there. We want to insert our hook into that, like right into it, and then make a slip stitch. So yarn over and slip stitch. And that kind of connects the first row, which is right here. Now it's on the other side because I turned. And then this is we're still on the second row. So we need to make a second block because remember, row 2 is always going to have 2 blocks. So now I want to chain up only 3 this time. 1, 2, 3, because I'm kind of set up to make another block right into this space here. So that's a chain of 3. And then I'm going to make 3 double crochets into this same space. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so now you can see it looks just like how we have here. We have 1 block and then 2 blocks, 1 block and then 2 blocks. Diane says, I've been crocheting a long time. I've never seen this. The design, how it looks could be a heart. Yeah, so I would try if you want to start doing like picture graph, like I was telling you before. A heart is like a very good first one to do because it's pretty easy to make a heart. So just like draw yourself a little graph of a heart or find one online. And then all you have to do is do it how I'm showing you, but you just have to change colors, right? Where the blocks are changing colors. So the twist makes the pattern. It's kind of more like a turn. So think of it as a turn, like when you crochet in rows and you turn to do the next row and you turn and you turn. So yeah, it looks like a twist with this, but it's really, you're just turning your rows, okay? All right, so now let's see, I have another question and then we'll do row 3. Do they make color changing yarn? No, that would be, Belle, that would be cool, but that would probably be pretty difficult to dye a yarn like that. I like different colors, but I hate weaving in ends. Yeah, I hate weaving in ends. And you can do some floats with this. It's kind of like intarsia where you can leave some floats, but you still have to like weave in a bunch of ends. It looks pretty, but it's a lot of work. I'm not huge on color work myself for that reason, because you have to weave in like so many ends. But if you do something simple, it's not too bad. And if you do use like a variegated yarn that color changes, what's cool about this is the color changes are going to be on a diagonal. So it'll be like diagonal stripes instead of just like the normal, horizontal or vertical stripes. So that's kind of cool, but you won't be able to make like a picture graph. Okay, so now row 3, right? So now we're going to chain up 6 again, because we're starting a new row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So with every new row, we chain up 6 to start the new row. And then we go double crochet into the 4th chain from the hook again, just like we did before. Insert, double crochet. So that's 2 double crochets, and each block has 4 double crochets. So that's 3 and then 4. Right? So that's the beginning of row 3. This is why it looks like a twist, because it's just kind of hanging out here, but really it's just kind of like a turn. So then you turn your work, and now here's that chain 3 space that I told you before. And then we just want to insert into that chain 3 space to connect, right? So insert, slip stitch. Now we've connected there. So we have 1 block here, and then we need a block here and a block here, right? Because we need 3 blocks for row 3. So now we're still on row 3. We're like in the middle of row 3. So we don't need to chain up 6. We only need to chain up 3 for the first double crochet of this second block of the row. So then 3 more double crochets in the same space. 1, 2, 3, and that makes the next block. Right? And now we want to make the last block. So we're going to connect it right here into this chain 3 space, slip stitch, that connects it, and then chain up 3, because remember we're still on row 3. And 1, 2, 3 double crochets. Whoops, lost that one. There we go. See how we're just kind of making, and this is going to stay a triangle like this until we start decreasing. But we have the first block, row 1, row 2, and then row 3 with 3 blocks. Wait, I thought that, okay, yeah, so the chain 3 counts as a double crochet. That is correct. Yes. So Ruth said, do you have directions? This is not a pattern. This is just kind of like a technique class. So I don't have a pattern for you, but this is the basic technique of corner to corner. So whatever pattern you have, or you can make your own pattern, it's gonna start out like this. It's gonna start out how I showed you with the chain of 6, the first block, the 2 blocks, 3 blocks, and so on. But I don't have written instructions because it's not really a pattern. But like I said, all the patterns are going to follow this technique, right? Okay, so now we're on to row 4, and you'll always remember what row you're on, because okay, I have 3 blocks here. For row 4, I need 4 blocks. So let's start with a chain of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going to go into the 4th chain again. First 3 skip chains count as a double crochet. So double crochet into the 4th chain. Remember, this is the beginning block of the row, so it's a little bit different than the blocks that are not the first block of the row. So double crochet, and then a 3rd double crochet and a 4th double crochet. We want 4 double crochets per block. And now that it's hanging out like this, you're gonna turn this bottom part. That's turning your work just like you do in rows, but differently. And then here's my little chain 3 space from the first, which it's a chain 3 space, but it's really just the space between the double crochets of this block here, right? So I'm going to insert my hook right into there and slip stitch to connect. And now I'm going to work row 4 up this way, right? Danielle said she got totally lost. I'll start over again, and then because we have plenty of time, this is just a basic technique. So I'll start over again from the beginning for those of you who got lost. think I chose the wrong side. Michelle, what kind of yarn do you have? Because you can do this with any yarn, really. The yarn doesn't really matter too much unless you're using like thread. It's gonna be kind of hard. But use something kind of bulky or worsted at best, right? Just for practice. 1, 2, 3. So first double crochet, three chains, first double crochet of this block because we're in the middle of the row now. And then 1, 2, 3 double crochets. That's a block. Connect it to this block, which is the row before. 1, 2, 3. That's a double crochet. And then 3 more double crochets. I'm going to get to the end of this row and then I'll start over. 2, 3. And remember, we need 4. Sometimes you want to stop here because it seems like you should, but if you're going to keep going, you need to make that 4th block. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There's like a huge thunder at my house if you guys didn't hear that. Okay, so that was row 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks. New replies. Loops and thread size 4. Loops and threads. Oh, size 4 is okay. That's like a worsted. That yarn is fine. Just make sure you're Michelle. I'm talking to Michelle. Sorry. Make sure you're using a 5 or a 5.5 millimeter at least hook. So you're not, having trouble with it using too small of a hook or too large of a hook. So when I use a worsted weight, I usually use a 5.5, 5, sometimes a 6 if it's like a thick worsted. Let me start over again for you guys that were lost, because like I said, this is just technique. So we're just kind of going over the basics here. But I do have to show you how to decrease, because if you don't decrease, you're always just going to keep going and going and going and have this triangle and you'll never have a square. So we definitely have to get to that, but that's super easy. So no problem. All right, so here we go. We are starting out with any corner to corner project. It's usually going to be some kind of picture graph, or it can just be a solid color, but you're always going to end up with just either a square or a rectangle. You're not really going to end up with like, a sweater. So this is the basic of it. You're always going to start with a chain of 6 for the first row, and for every row after that, you're going to start out with a chain of 6 at the beginning of the row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you've been crocheting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you've been crocheting, you know how to chain. You know how to chain 6, and you know how to probably double crochet. So we're going to double crochet into the 4th chain from the hook. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and there's my 4th. Double crochet is always yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, everyone with me? You're welcome, Danielle. And then we have 2 chains left. We want 4 double crochets per block. So we're going to make another double crochet in the next chain and another double crochet in the last remaining chain. And that gives us, because we counted those first 3 skipped chains as a double crochet here, that gives us 4 double crochets for the block. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that is row 1. Now, row 1 will always have 1 block. Row 2 is going to have 2 blocks. So because we're starting a row again, we want to chain up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we're going to do a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Double crochet. And now there's 2 chains left, right? So double crochet. And then double crochet into the next chain that's left. And that's those 6 chains that we made. So remember, at the start of row 2, we started with 6 chains. The first 3 skipped chains count as a double crochet, just like in row 1. And then we did a double crochet in the 3 remaining chains of the chain 6 that we made. And now we need to turn, because now it just looks like 2 kind of things flopping around here. So to turn, and this is, I think, where people get confused. It's a little weird how you turn, but you just want to flip this one this way. So the backs of the double crochets are kind of looking at you. And then you want to find that first 3 skipped chains, which is really the first double crochet of the block. And then just insert your hook in between there. And then make a slip stitch. Oops, make a slip stitch like that. And that connects the 2 separate rows. So this is row 1 and this is row 2. Now you're oriented to where row 2 is going to work up this way, right? But row 1 is oriented in a completely different way now. Now row 1 is facing horizontally, right? So this is how you would normally see your double crochets. They'd be lined up horizontally. And when you turn, it's going to orient them to be like on their side, if that makes sense, right? So they're facing a different direction. So it's like this and like this, right? So just maybe if that helps orient yourself from there. So now, because we want 2 double crochets in this row, we need to make 1 more block where we've connected here. So to start the next block, because we're not starting another row, we're just starting another block, we're going to chain up 3, which is the first double crochet of the block. And now all we have to do is put 3 more double crochets into that same space where we slip stitched to complete that block. Does that make sense? 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so I think everyone's with me. Okay, now, so we're going to do row 3. We're going to do the same exact thing because we're starting a new row. We're chaining up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, here we have the start of our row, which is a chain of 6. And we're going to double crochet into the 4th chain, which is right here. The first 3 skipped are the first double crochet. So this double crochet that we're doing now is technically the second double crochet of the block. 1, 2, and now there's 2 chains left. 3 and 4. Okay, so now you have to say, okay, now these are oriented weird again, but I want to, this one is the block that I'm working on. I want this one to be like it would be if I was just crocheting a regular row, right? So this part is going to flip up this way now. And now these double crochets from the previous row are kind of on their side like this, and they're facing this way, right? The tops of them are here. And now the first row that we did is lined up like this one because we turned, right? Okay, so now that we connect these, we're going to slip stitch into that chain 3 space, or that first double crochet. And this is the first, this is the next block of row 3. So we only have to chain up 3 because it's not the beginning of the row. So 1 double crochet, and then we work 3 more double crochets in that same space to complete the second block of the row. And now we do the same thing because we need 3 blocks. So we're going to slip stitch. This is the third and the last block of the row. It starts with a chain of 3, which is a double crochet, and then 1, 2, 3 more double crochets. Okay, Belle says now it's making more sense. Yeah, so see how these double crochets are kind of facing, like if you're looking at the posts of the double crochets, they are vertical, and then these are vertical. But the previous row, because we turned, are sitting like horizontally. So it's always going to be like that. When it's turned, the previous row, they're going to be sitting horizontally. And then the other ones are going to be sitting vertically. And that'll change like depending on how you move it. But maybe that helps so you can visualize what's happening when you're turning. I think it's the turning that people get confused with. Can you show one more time where you went into the chain 3 and slip stitch to make that last block of row 3? Yes, I can do that. And Danielle said, I think I'm with it now. Okay, so let's do one more row. Now we're going to be on row 4, so we need 4 blocks, right? And I'll go through each one so you remember to do the last one too. So remember, we're starting row 4, so we're always starting with chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, only at the start of the row. And then double crochet into the 4th chain. So that makes my first 2 double crochets of that block. And then double crochet into the next 1 and 2 chains. That's my first block. And now here, this piece, you want to turn it like this so that the double crochets of the previous row are sitting on their side like this vertically. And that should orient you properly to connect into the chain 3 space here, which is also, I mean, it's a chain 3 space, but it's also the space between these 2 double crochets, if that makes it easier. Double crochet, you're just going right into that space. So you don't have to worry about working into stitches. That's another reason why this is fast, because you're working into spaces as opposed to like tops of stitches, which are a little more, smaller to get into. So into that space, right? And now, because we're working on a block, we're going to chain up only 3. And then we're going to do 3 more double crochets into that same space to complete the block. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now if you look at your row, you have 1, 2 blocks so far in this row. Now we're going to go make the 3rd block into this space right here. So the space of the previous block, not the previous block, the space of the block of the previous row, like that. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and now sometimes it's like, oh, okay, I'm done, because it kind of looks like you're done because you're lined up here. But remember, you want to make the same number of blocks of the row that you're on. So keep track of your rows. So if you get lost, you can say, okay, well, how many did I have in this row? 1, 2, 3. So this row I should have 4, right? 1, 2, 3. The 4th one always is going to go on the top here. So make sure you're increasing every row. You have to increase by 1 block. Don't forget to increase every row by 1 block. So the very last block is going to go into this space here of this top block of the previous row. So same space that we've been going into, like that. Slip stitch, chain up 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So now I have 4 double crochets, or I'm sorry, 4 blocks in this last row. All right, so let me see if we can start. I think everybody is with me now. So what I want to show you is how to decrease because we need to get to a square, right? So let's make one more quick row. I'm going to do this really quick. You can see how quick you can do this once you get used to it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, especially if you're not changing colors. Now, if you're changing colors and making like a picture graph, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's gonna, obviously you're gonna have to be more mindful, changing colors in the right place, weaving in, ends, making sure your floats are hanging to one side, the right side, the wrong side, and not the right side. Checking with the graph to make sure you're, changing colors at the right blocks, all that stuff. So it's going to be a much harder project. So what I would do is just maybe get some cool, like if you have some cool, like variegated or striped yarn, just do a project with all blocks like this, like where you never have to change color, and just make a nice square blanket. Yeah, and you'll have a cool, like diagonally striped blanket, and that'll give you some good practice. And then if you want to try a picture graph, once you get the technique down, you can start working with color changes. Okay, so a float is just when you have color changes and you have to change your colors. So if I made one block in white, one block in brown, and then I was using like green and red and all these different colors, you would have to cut this yarn off the ball every time. So it would either be hanging, like you would have an end of yarn hanging, or you can sometimes work over those those strands, or you float the strand. So you kind of just pull it over and then you have this strand sort of showing. And then sometimes with like really complicated stuff, you'll have like a bunch of strands just kind of all across the back of your work. And we just call them floats. That's usually with like Fair Isle, stuff like that. Sometimes they'll put it on the inside of a sweater where you won't see it, or maybe like the back of a pillow or something like that. You can't do that with like a blanket because you'll have all these like yarn ends hanging out. But that's a whole nother class. Okay, so now that we have so I'm gonna say, let's say I'm making my blanket and I just keep going along, increasing until I have like maybe, I don't know, like 60 blocks or something like that. And then I say, okay, what I would do is I would measure this side from here to here. And I would say, okay, let's say my blanket is 60 inches. Which it probably would be, because right here I have, well, it would be more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 blocks, and this is about 6 inches. So if I had 50 blocks, it would be maybe, I don't know, I'm not doing the math. If this was 1 inch per block, let's just say, so I don't have to do math. It's 1 inch per block. And then I would say, okay, well, I'll do 60 blocks. So my blanket is going to be 60 inches long. And it's also going to be 60 inches wide, right? Because this is going to be a square. So then I say, okay, well, 60 inches is enough for me. I don't want my blanket to be any bigger. I'm going to start decreasing now and making the other side of the square, okay? So let's say we're at that point and we don't want any more increases. We want to decrease. So here you would end the row like this. And instead of chaining up 6 to increase again, because every chain up 6 is an increase of a block, you would simply turn at this point, turn your work, and now we're going to decrease. So we're just going to slip stitch across these 4 double crochets and not make another block to increase. So I'm just going to slip stitch in that first one. And then I'm going to slip stitch in the second one. I'm just slip stitching into the tops of the double crochets and into the 4th one. See, I just slip stitched across instead of making a new block. And then let me see what Denali said real quick. Wait, didn't we crochet 3 double crochets? And if chain 3 is a double crochet, isn't that 4 double crochets? Yes. So we did a chain of 3, which counts as the first double crochet, and then 3 more double crochets, which is a total of 4 double crochets, and each block should always have 4 double crochets. So if that's the clarification you need, that's correct. Okay. We are on row 6 now, but we're not increasing anymore. We just slip stitch across, and then we're going to turn because we need to orient ourselves to continue working in this direction. Okay, so remember, no block right here, no increase, just slip stitch across, and that will bring us to where we need to just continue to make the blocks like we did in the previous rows. So now I'm making a block on top of this one. So I'm going to chain up 3, and then I'll work my 3 double crochets into that same space, which will be a total of 4 double crochets. So 1, 2, 3 more, and that first one is 4 total. Okay, and I'm still on this row 6. So I want to make another block here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, that's another block. And now I want to make another block here. We're just doing the blocks across like we did before. 1, 2, 3. And then another block here. Remember, slip stitch, chain up 3, which is a double crochet, 3 more double crochets in the same space for a total of 4 double crochets, which equals 1 block. And now here I am at this last one, right? Now, if I were to do what we did before, which is make another block, I would be increasing. But I want to decrease here again, because we want to close the square. So now I'm just going to insert here and then connect it, right? Like we have been, but I'm not going to make that last block. 1, 2, 3. Okay, because we want to start decreasing. We went from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now we want 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're decreasing. So just slip stitch to join and then turn. Okay, that's it. So now I'm down to 4 blocks. And now I want to do the same thing for the next row. I want to do the same thing that I did where we just slip stitch across those double crochets to decrease. So slip stitch, slip stitch, slip stitch, and slip stitch. And now we can make 1, 2, 3 more blocks, right? Because we want to go from 4 to 3. So now let's just make 3 blocks. So for the decrease section, you don't need to do the chain 6s because the chain 6s make a new block and we are no longer increasing blocks, we're decreasing blocks. So that's 1 block. Now I'm going to do the next block here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 double crochets. Chain up 3, first double crochet, 3 double crochets in the same space. So see, creating the blocks is the same. You're doing the blocks the same exact way. You're just not creating those increase blocks at the beginnings of the rows, okay? And now here we're going to end right here with just a slip stitch. That's all we have to do in that last section. And now I have 1, 2, 3 blocks. And now we're going to turn again. And now we should have 2 blocks, right? So we need to slip stitch across again. 1, 2, 3, 4 slip stitches across. And now I should have 2 blocks. chain 3, first double crochet, 3 more double crochets for a total of 4 to make my first block. Slip stitch, chain up 3, 3 more double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and last one, you just slip stitch. And now you can see I have only room for 1 more block left. So I'm going to turn again, slip stitch across, 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and move it this way. So I make that very last block, which is going to be chain 3 and 3 double crochets, of course. And lastly, you just connect right there with a slip stitch. And that would be the end of your blanket. You would fasten off there and weave in the end. So nobody has said anything about the decreasing. So I'm assuming you guys are all with me with the decreasing. We'll just weave in those ends. So cut that yarn. Let's say we're completely done with our blanket. We made a nice big giant square blanket, and it was probably pretty fast and easy if you use this thick yarn. So I'm just going to pull that strand out, and with my little tapestry needle, I'll just weave in this end here. So I usually just go through, kind of do a zigzag a little bit. I try to go through the stitches. And I don't know, maybe like 4 passes if you kind of zigzag around, and then you can cut that strand. And then you would do the same thing for this tail here. And that's it. Then you have a perfectly nice square blanket. And then you could make a single crochet border around it. You could make a double crochet border around it, just any kind of border that you like. What I would probably do is try to do like 3 single crochets, because see how you have 1, 2, 3 double crochets. So maybe like 3 here, 3 here, 3 here, 3 here. Yeah, so I would just do double crochets all around. And then of course in the corners you would do like, you know, single crochet, chain 2 single crochet, or 3 single crochets or something like that. However you would normally do your borders. But yeah, it would definitely look nice with a border because it's not really a finished edge kind of look. So you can do any kind of fun border that you want with that for your blanket. And do you guys, I think we kind of covered everything. That's the very, very basics. Like I said, we didn't really do any color changes or anything like that because I wanted you to learn the basics of how to do this technique. And then once you get more advanced, once you get kind of practicing the turning and the making the blocks and the increasing the blocks and the decreasing the blocks, once you get the hang of that, you could just go crazy and do like all kinds of fun color work and stuff like that if you're into it. Do you have a completed blanket? I don't have one here. Did I have no, I don't. But if you go on Pinterest and just look up C to C or corner to corner, there's a lot. I can't show like other people's work and stuff. But yeah, if you go on Pinterest and just put in C to C or YouTube or something like that, there's so many cool things out there. And you don't really even need a pattern if you understand the technique and you understand how to do the color changes. You can just make your own grid. Just get like, I use this graph paper. This is like it's like just, you know, a grid, like my kids' math class paper. And then I just like make my own little, this one, then I'll just like make my own little pictures and stuff. And you can use colored pencils, or you can do something on the computer if you have Excel. Yeah, you can do like graphs in Excel. you just kind of draw out something that you like, or like a heart, or get something off of, Pinterest or online somewhere, and just go crazy. Sorry, I don't have any completed projects to show you guys. Yeah. If we were to make them bigger, could they be pot holders? Oh yeah, you could totally make these pot holders, but if you're going to make pot holders, use cotton yarn. Use the, let me show you my cotton that I recommend for that. I think this is one that Michaels still carries. I'm not 100%, but you could get this or something similar. Michaels has lots of cotton yarns, but it's like 100% cotton, and it doesn't necessarily have to be 100% cotton, but something with cotton in it is best for maybe like washcloths, or the things that you put down, like hot plates, to put a hot plate on or something like that. Now, with pot holders, if you're going to put your hand in the oven, I wouldn't use like a crochet thing for that, just because there's always going to be holes in it, and I wouldn't want to burn myself. But if you want to use it for like coasters, dishcloths, just that thing that you put on the table and then you put like a hot plate over it, those kind of things, totally. Yeah, not to put hot pot. Yeah, yeah, not to put hot pots, not to like stick your hand in the oven. Yeah. Is there time to show how you end the first row of decrease? Yeah, no ovens. Danielle, you're with me there. Yeah, let me see if I can. The first row of decrease. Oh yeah, I can show you that. So we have this. Let's pretend we're going to do it here. Let's pretend, because I don't want to reconnect a new yarn. So let's pretend this has, a lot of blocks on it, or you're just making a coaster. Okay, here's my little coaster. And I want to start decreasing here. So this would be the end of row 3, right? So here I am at the end of row 3. I have 1, 2, 3 blocks. And at this point, you would normally chain up 6 and do your next block, but that would be an increase. But you say, no, I want to decrease here. I only want a tiny coaster. So then you would not do that chain 6. Rather, you would just turn and slip stitch across. 1, 2, 3. I forgot that first one, but either 3 or 4 slip stitches. It doesn't really matter. Just so you're getting to the spot where you can make another block. That's all you're doing, is slip stitching across. So you move your work to where you need to make another block. So that's how I decreased. I didn't do the chain 6. Rather, I just slip stitch across to set myself up to make another block, which is the row of blocks, right? Not the beginning block. So then I do chain 3, and then I do 1, 2, 3 for a block. Connect here with a slip stitch. 1, 2, 3. That's my first double crochet. 1, 2, 3. That's my next block. And now at this point, I'm going to slip stitch here again to connect. And instead of making that next block, because I have 2 here, remember, I want to decrease by 1. So when you're increasing, you increase by 1 block each row. And when you're decreasing to make a square, you decrease by 1 block each row. So now I have 1, 2 blocks, right? So the previous row I had 1, 2, 3 blocks. Now I have 2 blocks. So now now all I have to do here is I've connected. So I completed that row, and then I just turn again. And now I'm going to decrease here as well. So decrease for this row as well. So slip stitch across. 1, 2, 3, 4 slip stitches. And then I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. This is just 1 block that I have to make here, because the last row had 2, and then I should say the previous row had 2, and the very last row is always going to have 1. So the first row will always have 1, and the last row will always have 1. And then I just connect. So that was for Carol, who said, how you end the first row of decrease. So that was yeah, so that was 2 rows ending decreases. Does that make sense? You just don't do that. You just don't do that chain 6 to make another block. You just slip stitch and start the next row. Okay, I think Carol got that because she said thank you. Okay, guys, I think that's it. I think we got all the questions. I'm glad you guys were able to ask questions and we were able to just kind of get through a technique. Sometimes it's a lot to try to make a whole project in these you know, only short classes. So I thought, well, I'll just show a technique and then they can kind of have the technique in their back pocket and go crazy with it. You're welcome, Nora. And Lisa said, thank you. You're welcome, Susie and Dee, and you're welcome, Sonali. So you guys, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me. Remember, these classes are always on YouTube, so you can check out my older classes as well on the YouTube channel. And I should be back next month with something else. I forgot what it is, but I'll be back. So check out my class in April. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And I'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone. Bye.